We are back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Clark County Today Sports Podcast. We still need to find a better name than that.
We'll get it.
But we'll get it one day. It's your host. It's me, Paul Valencia from Clark County Today, and our sports administrators, Tony Liberatore of Vancouver Public Schools, Fort Vancouver.
Go Trappers.
Go Trappers. And Cale Piland of Evergreen Public Schools.
Hello.
Go, all of the Evergreen schools.
Go Evergreen people.
Yes. Hey, fellas, I've got some great news. We have at least one listener.
Yes, thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
So a couple of weeks ago, if you recall, we had Mick Hoffman of the WIAA on our show. And after that podcast posted, we received an email from a listener who wanted more information. So that's proof that we are not just listening to ourselves talk. But I know a few people are listening, but it's still it was nice to get some feedback from someone who's not related to us.
Sure.
Yes. Also true.
Yes.
So at least one other person out there likes us or couldn't figure out how to turn off the podcast. But thank you, Charles from Camas, for listening. You wrote such a great email that we will be dedicating most of this podcast to your questions. I don't know about most, but a lot. Charles is relatively new to the state and wanted to know more about high school transfers and eligibility rules in our state. Who better to explain that than Cale and Tony, who have been on eligibility boards through the years and also as ADs have asked for eligibility through the boards. So you've done it all.
Yes.
And of course, I can get into my background as a journalist with some of these situations we've seen in Clark County through the years. We also have to talk about Adam Mathieson, longtime football coach at Mountain View, who resigned this week. And anything else that might come up, including a shout out to Jack Colletto, former Camas football player. He hopes to be drafted Saturday in the NFL draft.
Saw that.
And that would be pretty darn awesome. So other than that, we're just kind of winging it. We'll get to whatever we got. Before we go into the deep dive into eligibility rules, and by the way, we have a big name athlete who is in the process of transferring. Let's talk about Adam Mathieson, Mountain View coach, 99 wins, I think it was 15 football seasons, including the abbreviated year. Yep. So 5 or 6 league titles. Again, it's 6 if you include that abbreviated year, but that's a weird one. But
I'll count it.
Yeah, okay, we'll count it. We'll give it a state semifinal appearance and pretty much respected by all who know him. We're going to start with you, Cale, just because he works at Evergreen Schools. Your thoughts on Adam, the football coach?
Nothing but respect for Math. He does a great job, and he's kind of been Mountain View athletics, it feels like, since he's been there. And not having him around, the community's going to feel it.
Big time.
There's just no other way to say it.
Tony?
I had, I coached against Adam and was at River, and then was an AD colleague with him for many years. So it's true. And just to kind of back up what Kel was saying, I am a Mountain View parent, and I can remember talking to some of my daughter's friends, and I told them, I said, there's not very many high school coaches in the county, let alone maybe even the country, that start off with love and family. That's how he approached it.
Right.
So, yeah, Kel's right. The community will feel that.
Absolutely. So my favorite Adamisms was he rarely cursed, if ever. And I hope I'm not... I hope our listeners are not naive that sometimes football coaches curse. I'm not sure if you knew that, even at the high school level.
Move the drill.
Yeah, but he rarely cursed. He always loved "son of a sailor." That was "son of a sailor," and I love that. And then I did hear him one time, like maybe say that damn. I don't know. Excuse me for saying that on our Clark County Today podcast, but it was like shocking when I heard it. It was like whoa. So, but no, he rarely did that. And then I also love that I think he fired himself a couple of times because he's the athletic director, and there was at least one year where he was a little burnt out on some things, and he fired himself as football coach, but not as an AD, and then rehired himself. So yeah,
Never mind, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was more of he just needed a month to clear his head and stuff.
Always never ask a head coach like a week or two after the season what they want to do next year, because they're all burnt out, right?
That's a great point. And hey, you used to do this. You used to do this. So yeah. But of course, we also can't just say he resigned. We must touch base on why he resigned, and it's not the typical spend more time with family. he's just another domino in the whole Evergreen Public Schools and the budget cuts. We've been talking about it for now since early March.
Yeah.
The 4 athletic directors from the traditional high schools are on the cutting room floor, or cutting. What do they call it? Cutting board, chopping block. Yeah,
Sure.
And so yeah, he told me, and this was on the record. It was in our article on Clark County Today, that he has been offered a job within the school district. He has accepted that job, but the job is not at Mountain View. And so he'd be on campus somewhere else. I'm not going to say where yet because it's not official, okay. But his day job will be on another school at Evergreen, and he just feels like you can't be the head coach of a football team working at one school and then going to another. And I respect him for that. Cale?
Yeah, it's very that scenario creates a lot of challenges, and the job's hard enough to do when you're in the building, but doing it from another school during the day, I totally get where Adam's coming from with that, because it just creates some issues that would make it difficult, especially for a coach that does it like he does it. And he's, as Tony said, he's all about his kids, and if he not having access to those individuals during the school day, very, very challenging.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree. And we talked about this. I think that we talked about Evergreen. You want head coaches in the building, regardless of the program, but football, because it. At a 3A or 4A school, you're talking to 100 to 130 kids, maybe more at the big 4As. You need the head coach on campus every day.
Right.
In season, out of season, summer, you do. So I respect Adam why he's doing that.
Right.
So
I'm not going to go into all 4 athletic directors and all the wonderful things that I could say about each of them, but because this is Adam's week. This is time to celebrate Adam as a great football coach for the 15 years that he was there, and he was 16 years as AD. But this is something that I don't think the superintendent's office thought about, is that Mountain View, Adam brought to the top, was kind of the philosophy, to the top to Mountain View. And it's a philosophy about winning in school, winning on the field, winning wherever you are, character, all that stuff. And the whole rest of the school took it. Took that culture, and it came from Adam. And it wasn't some math teacher who said, let's go to the top, and it spread to sports. It started with sports, the AD. And it wasn't just football. It was everybody. Hey, if you're going to wear a Mountain View Thunder uniform, you're going to represent these values. And then those values spread to the teachers in the classroom. And I just hope people understand that the athletic directors are so much more than just, let's play football.
Right. No, and Mick was here 2 weeks ago, and there was nobody that I've worked with that sharpened my focus more on the AD and building culture than Mick when he was the district athletic director at Vancouver. And, people just think, well, you get the buses there on time, you get the umpires there on time. It's 1,000 more things than that.
Right. And also that doesn't always happen either.
No, well, but that's important. Yeah. That's part of that culture.
No, right.
But
right.
As we talked about this a few weeks ago, that what Tony's talking about getting the buses there and getting the officials there and whatnot, that's base level AD work, and the folks who are good at doing it are the ones who do build culture and intentionally build culture within the programs. Because you're right, Paul, it spills directly over into the overall school culture when it's done correctly, and so it can be really powerful.
Right. So anyway, Adam, we'll miss you as head coach at Mountain View. He also did say he will coach again. He's not done coaching. He's just done coaching at Mountain View. And again, if he goes to a school that already has a head coach and wants him on staff, he said he'd be an assistant. And I could see him being a head coach someday again, too, just because he's flipping Adam Mathieson. If he wants to be a head coach, he's going to be a head coach somewhere. The guy knows how to run a program. So, but best of luck to you on that. Sorry it wrapped up this week, Adam. It's just a weird way to end it.
Yep.
Agreed.
So. Well, now let's get to our next topic.
Something more chipper.
Yeah, more chipper.
Eligibility
and transfer rules. So, again, we had Charles from Camas. He just asked some question. We had Mick on, and we were talking about, I think I asked Mick about how would the WIA want to be more involved in the disciplining of programs if there were some issues or somebody gets caught doing something wrong. And he said, no, he doesn't want that. But our listener, Charles, he said, well, what kind of rules are there for transfer? And it's different in every state. And so I thought, hey, that's pretty fascinating. And I'm just going to throw out a pretty big name right now. Brooklyn Haywood, Union girls basketball freshman this past year, the one who scored 50 points in a game, and she's incredible. Well, I don't mind telling everyone, they have left Union High School. I believe they've enrolled in the Camas' online program, but they've also moved into the Camas boundary. So right now, she is moving to Camas. I might do a story next basketball season on it, but for the purpose of this podcast, how is she eligible right now, Cale, Tony? Cale, tell me about it.
Well, the entire family unit is the term that the WIA uses. So whomever she was living with while she was attending Union High School, when she established her eligibility there, as long as that entire family unit moved into the Camas attendance area, she's automatically fully eligible. She actually would have the opportunity to be eligible at either school, because if she were to have moved there and got a boundary exception to stay at Union and it was continuously enrolled at Union, her eligibility would have stayed there. But she's not elected to do that at this time. So, yeah, as long as she was living with her folks in the Union attendance area and they moved from one house to another, that new house resides in the Camas attendance area, she can be eligible at Camas High School immediately.
Great. Tony, your thoughts on just
as an AD, I'm just thinking of, I don't know Camas's AD, but with a high-profile move like this, as soon as you verify the address, I mean, that would be my main concern with something like this. And if they've done it, then perfect. And I appreciate, and Cale would know more about how District 4 is doing it now, but in Vancouver, there were times, even for non-athletics, that we need to verify addresses. And our district has set up easier procedures for administration or even counselors to help with that. And so we just go through that process.
Right. That reminds me a long time ago, and this was never reported, and it was a JV baseball player. I won't even tell you the school. But it was after, a practice went late, and this kid didn't have a ride home, so the coach said, okay, we'll give you a ride home. And they just drove, and they just drove, and they just drove. Where do you live? I live here. And the coach had no idea that his own guy. Oops. Well, you don't live in our district. So they went to the district office, and they tried to figure it all out.
Right.
Whatever. But my point is, it's just funny things like that can happen too.
Well, and it can both be funny, haha, and funny like, oh, now what? Because, and Cale's right, because there is a process even when you move residences to stay at your current school.
Correct.
And that's just one of those things, we talked about what an AD has to do, or even really, a good principal would bring this up too, or the district level is, if you're moving, get your boundary exception in early and, do all this, whatever your district process is. Families need to know that. Now, down here, it's not so much, but I've heard horror stories about King and Pierce County, especially in basketball.
Right.
Right. Those types of things of, you move 3 times in a school year, twice in a season.
It's happening in football too.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
And, and I don't mean to dig up old ghosts, but the Bellevue football situation from 9 years ago, all that stuff. So,
Cale, you have any experience with that?
No experience. With
sorry, I did not mean that. I didn't mean to.
Cale's Union Titans lost to Bellevue twice. Semifinals and finals, back-to-back years. Yeah.
Yep. And Columbia River lost twice to him in the playoffs.
That's true too.
And one time in the dome. So I saw the machine.
You should, if this was on video, you'd see steam coming out of Cale's ears right now.
What are you talking about? In the semifinals, we didn't give up an offensive touchdown to them and still found a way to lose the game.
Yes, we did. That was a great defensive game plan you guys had.
Yeah.
It was. And you executed it, but oh well. Sorry.
Paul's easy with oh well.
Just wasn't meant to be. It didn't matter. Didn't matter that the Bellevue guy was living, in a mall or something. No, that was on a boat. No, I'm just kidding. Oh. So anyway,
who knows?
But anyway, there's but around So. Yeah.
Well, so the big thing with those situations, Paul, is the WIA also has a residency contract.
Right.
And so I got to the point when I was in the building, I was doing it with any kid that was new. But you definitely, with a higher profile athlete, you definitely want to make sure that you have that contract signed where basically the family is attesting this is where we are saying we are living. And that in turn protects the school.
Right.
So otherwise, you would have to forfeit any games that the athlete participated in. But if they've signed this contract and they're lying to the school, then the athlete becomes ineligible and the school doesn't have to forfeit contests.
Right, right.
So,
Tony?
Well, and I was just going to ask Cale, is it still, has the WIA, just because I'm not in it day to day anymore, have they delineated of, gosh, how do I want to phrase this? So Brooklyn's played basketball.
Yep.
What if she's never played soccer?
She's eligible immediately.
Okay, so
Yes,
it's just
yep.
still those. It's only the sport that you played in,
and not necessarily even if you if she had played for a club soccer team,
right,
but hadn't played at Union, that would still count because she had participated in that.
Right.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's not the case for Brooklyn.
No,
we're just using her name as an example.
I should have said student X. Sorry, Brooklyn.
Right. Yes. But yeah, no, and it's funny because as a journalist and then Cale as the AD, we had many conversations about athletes, and at one point, long time ago in my career, early in Union's, Union beginnings.
Yep.
Yeah, you heard it all. Union was recruiting. Union was recruiting.
Yes.
Got to the point where me as a journalist had to go find out, hey, is Union recruiting? So I asked Cale, and he crossed his heart and hoped to die, all that stuff. He said he wasn't recruiting. So, but no, he actually gave me, he showed me the process of what an AD does. And then I also backed it up with the AD at the time was Skyview. And she said the exact same thing. And that kind of what you were saying is if the parents tell me, sign a document where their address is and they show that they have proof that they're living there, that's what we can do. But, as far as recruiting, there was never any, quote, proof. I reported that back to my boss. And then a year later, he put another journalist on because he thought, I was a little too close to the situation, and that's okay, whatever. And that other journalist came back with the exact same thing I did, which is, if they're doing it, they're doing it. they're doing it really well. We can't prove it. Cale?
Yeah, no.
Do you remember all this?
I do. Yeah, I remember both the instances, and my answers were the same every time.
Right.
Anytime you open a new school, there's always going to be heartache because you're taking kids from other school by.
Yeah, they have to have students.
They've got to come from, and they're coming from within our district.
The boundaries were redrawn.
Yeah, so that can cause some hard feelings. And then we were fortunate enough at Union to experience a high level of success in a lot of sports right out of the chute. And so then I think it probably becomes a natural reaction for people who are now. They lost some kids, and now they're getting beat by those kids to I guess, hypothesize that maybe we weren't doing things legally, even though we were. I mean, everything we did was above board. So,
well, and I was going to say both Evergreen and Vancouver school districts, and I'm sure the smaller ones in the Clark County as well, there are district checks for that type of stuff too, because they don't want, especially sometimes across districts it comes up but really the internal strife, there are checks on that.
When someone comes from Hudson's Bay to Columbia River or Fort to Skyview.
And now Vancouver, the biggest thing, and I don't, again, how deep in the weeds do you want to get into transfer? Because all the high schools have magnet programs. Mm-hmm. And in between your 8th, because all the high schools, comprehensive high schools in Vancouver are 9 through 12, your 8th grade year, I'll say it, this is what the WIA calls it, you're a free agent. Mm-hmm. And you can just, I'm over here for middle school, and I'm going to go over here for high school because I got into this magnet program.
Right.
And we just
and I see it cut both ways now. Right.
We just had an amendment passed, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, because it used to be that was only okay as long as you resided in the Vancouver school district.
Correct.
The district could.
That's true. That's true. Thank you. I should say it's got to be in district.
School districts can determine where the kids who live in their attendance areas go to school. But this changed, I think it was 2 years ago, it might have been 3, because it gave some preferential treatment to kids who decided to go to private schools.
Correct.
So if you lived in the Evergreen school district, but you decided you wanted to go to Kingsway as a freshman, you would have been eligible immediately at Kingsway. Well, so why is it that it's only if I'm going to a private school that's the case? So now, if you are an Evergreen kid for middle school and you get a boundary exception to go to Fort Vancouver High School as a freshman, you're eligible immediately there as well. So it's like
varsity competition.
Yes, it is your one.
That's your one.
You're establishing your eligibility
Yes.
when you whatever high school you go to the very first year in. That's where you've established your eligibility.
Interesting.
And that's where a lot of the eligibility questions come up. That's where a lot of the gray area. Cale mentioned the private school.
Right.
If they don't have the sport, where am I eligible?
Right.
And I want to play.
Yeah.
And so, and that's where a lot of the, coming back and forth between programs and stuff. So,
Right.
yeah.
And so around here we have, for multi-school districts, it's Evergreen in Vancouver and Battleground.
Yeah.
But Battleground I don't know if they they certainly don't have the reputation of Vancouver and Evergreen schools. And the reputation is Evergreen schools only cares about union for sports. That's the myth or perception. We'll say, you say myth.
Not true.
But
yes.
that's the perception. And in Vancouver, it's whatever Columbia River and whatever Skyview wants.
Yes.
And, poor Fort and Hudson's Bay, they can take whatever.
I hear that a lot.
You hear that, yes. And you work at Fort,
and
so
I
that.
work at Fort, and I used to work at River. So
yes, so you know that.
Got both ways.
But each district has their own policies or whatever, and it's there somewhere. I bet you can go on a website and find it all out if you're a parent trying to figure this out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or call you. Or call.
I do get calls all the time, and I answer questions about hypothetical eligibility scenarios as to where you would be eligible to participate. Right. Yes.
Now, I think I wrote this in a column probably 15, 20 years ago, but it's still mostly true. I could get a pet rock eligible in high school sports in this state. It is not difficult.
You need a heartbeat, Paul.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. I don't know. But I've always said that the rules kind of only exist for the well-off families or the poor. It's the middle school families that own homes that can't get out of homes, especially when, 2008, 2009, when the home price, when the housing thing went, you're stuck as a middle class person. You can't just get up and leave. But we know that there was a family who lived in Ridgefield who had children go to Skyview, Prairie, Evergreen, and Union. And because they had it to be able to buy a house wherever they wanted whatever child to go to whichever school. We've seen that happen. And as a journalist, when I would do stories, and I actually did a story on that family, but it wasn't to go gotcha, it was to kind of explain that they did things the right way. I mean, by letter of the law. And then the other thing is I don't like to say poor. I did say poor. I should, just, I don't know, a better word for poor, but
if you are an apartment dweller
and
you want to move from one apartment complex to another apartment complex, and everybody that lived in that apartment moves,
right,
you're eligible.
You're eligible. So
if you're buying houses or renting, I mean, that's kind of but you're right. It tends to be the middle class where I can't really get out of that mortgage right now,
right,
and so you're stuck.
Mm-hmm. But the well-off and those who are not actually have it a little bit easier some way to get to.
Well, go ahead.
And the other thing to keep in mind, too, is not only does the entire family unit have to move, you have to reside there full time.
Yes.
It can't be you're going back home somewhere on the weekends.
Right.
That can't happen either.
And that has happened with some of the athletes that we know of. And I could think of 4 or 5 different instances, not just the one family I'm talking about. But again, we're not in the business of trying to prove that. You guys aren't going out and following kids home to see where they go.
No.
You have the paperwork of where they're supposed to be living. And for me as a journalist, it got to the point of, hey, if the leagues get together and say, we'll just say school X did something wrong, or this athlete at school X isn't living where they are, and there's some sanctions to the school, the team, or the athlete, then maybe it's a story. But I didn't want to go out and become the policeman for eligibility as a journalist. Because if I get one, then I got to go after everybody. So I'm assuming that's kind of what you guys did as ADs too. But I mean, a little bit more than me, but you weren't following anyone home.
No.
I always told families, I was like, look, you better be living where you're saying you're living, because it's probably going to be somebody that you know that's going to either follow you home or is going to know that you're not living where you're saying you're living, and they're going to be the ones that are going to blow the whistle.
And that's why I brought up those district processes. Essentially, what I had families sign was, and what the WIA had, it's a very similar form. Do you promise that you're living at this address? And I mean, I can't remember the exact, but if you're not, then you have to leave this school and you're ineligible for sports.
Right.
I mean, it was just like, it's
going to be a double whammy for you.
Yeah.
Another thing that we've probably done an assumption here. You mentioned it once, Tony, in this podcast, but I'm going to say it again. We're talking about varsity sports.
Yes.
Varsity sports. So you're
always eligible. You
can play JV or sub-varsity no matter what. And that brings me to one of Charles's questions was, what is the sit-out rule? And that is, if you are a transfer student and you don't have a hardship and you haven't moved as a full family unit, you must sit out 1 year
one calendar year
before you're eligible for varsity sports. I only know of one person. Her name is Kendall Carson. She's now at Pepperdine, so a Division I basketball player. But I believe it was her sophomore year. She played JV at Prairie when she moved here from Anchorage. I don't want to say Anchorage, Alaska somewhere. Yep. But and then her junior year, she helped Prairie win a state title. So she came down here, wanted to play right away. Was ruled ineligible for whatever. I don't need to go in I don't even remember the details. But she actually sat out for a year, and it still worked out for her. She's on scholarship at Pepperdine. But I can't think of anybody else. But why is there a sit-out rule, and what is the sit-out rule, Cale?
Well, it is for if you are. And people always talk about transfers. Well, no, you're really only a transfer if you've moved and you haven't actually moved with the family unit into the attendance area.
You just go into the new school.
So if you are a transfer student, then you are ineligible for varsity athletics from 1 calendar year from when you enroll in the school. But as you talked about, there is a process where you can appeal that, and so there's an eligibility committee, which I've sat on for a number of years for District 4, where you come to a meeting where you essentially try to show the hardship as to why you should be eligible. Mm-hmm. And some of those hearings, they're all confidential.
Right. We're not going to go into details here.
No, but some of those hearings are they're heartbreaking, because when a kid really has a hardship as to why they couldn't live in this location or with this person anymore or whatever. I mean, you just hear some stories that are like, that's a hardship. And so, no, we shouldn't penalize that kid. But you have to go through that process. And even if you get denied at that point, then you can appeal directly to WIA and they can hear it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and my 6 years did multiple eligibility committees, and I thought always fair for our athletes. Even if they said sorry.
Yeah, you won some, you lost some.
Yeah.
Right.
And I, and sometimes, when you run it by a couple other people, like, maybe you don't go to this one.
Yeah, and that is kind of an unwritten rule.
Right.
If the AD from the school where the kid's appealing doesn't show up for the hearing, that means that the AD doesn't support the claim as a hardship. Now, there will be times where the AD can't get there, and they will make sure to call and say, look, I just can't be there for this reason, but I do support this kid. But it is kind of an unwritten rule.
Right.
And I also like that District 4, at least I'm sure they still do, expedite some things without committee.
Yes.
And I told Paul a situation I had my next to last year at River, which was a student moving from another district got into River's IB program, but had played a varsity sport. And so, but got in boundary, said you're ineligible. Parents were building a house
in the River
district, and it was going to be ready during the season.
Wow.
Yep. This does happen too.
Now, and so I laid it on, and so I gave mixed the scenario and said, work with District 4. And they said, okay, but you're going to need to send us all the escrow, all the mortgage, address.
Yep.
I want it notarized. Like,
Yep.
it's just not like the PDF off,
Right.
Like, this has to be legit. And it was over 150 pages, and I just scanned it. And they took it, and, so.
Was the athlete was deemed eligible?
Yes, because they were purchasing a house, and it was like 2 weeks before move-in, right? And we're talking, this is like Labor Day weekend.
Right.
So they said, all right.
Yeah.
Good for them. Yeah. So every situation.
But I had never anticipated as AD, like, I need your escrow and mortgage papers.
Exactly. Hey, I know we're kind of deep in the weeds on this, but I also wanted to maybe do some pointers for families. Here's one thing that it's not really what Charles was asking exactly, but if you're a family and you want your son or daughter to go to a different school or whatever, do not approach the head coach of the other school.
Ooh, no.
The head coach has to say what, Cale?
You're going to have to talk to my AD.
Right. And Tony?
Yeah. Just start with this. Just start with the school administration. Easiest thing.
No, we direct our coaches very stringently to, you cannot engage in that conversation.
Yeah. If the head coach, and it's what's tough is, especially it won't happen much longer in Evergreen schools, but you have coaches who are also ADs.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, you have to go to the principal. Is that right?
Yep.
So you have to, when you were the football coach and AD at Union, if someone came up to you and said, I want my son to come play for you, you just said what?
You got to go talk to Brian Grimstead.
Yep. The principal at the time.
Yep.
So, and that's how it's supposed to be done. Now we know that doesn't
and
always
there's also
happen, but
there's also other areas, Paul, and that's a good question for parents because, every school has coaches that are also sometimes work with clubs. I mean,
yes,
and still have to follow WIA eligibility with that stuff, but they're just like, hey, I see you helping, this, and it's big in volleyball, and they do cross, like, okay, school X is going to coach school Y's team, club team, and school Y is going to coach school A's team, club, and so there's always those parents have access to the head coach right there, and I always told the coaches, don't just say, hey, please call the AD or come to our magnet night and you can talk to the AD there or teachers or whatever. But
right.
Well, and then even on top of that, there should be a level of professionalism. So as Tony, when he was the AD at River, if a parent did end up coming to talk to him, well, if that kid is looking to leave Battleground, it's a courtesy phone call to Battleground and say, hey, look, this parent is talking about this. Because a lot of times, even then, as an AD, if you have that conversation, you really direct them back to their home school first, right? Because there's just a level of professionalism we should have.
I know that's happened in the recent past on a couple of people.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, just athlete A and her parents were just in my office.
Yep.
You need to know we're not doing anything. We're not recruiting, but they're seeking.
Yeah.
They're seeking a move. So you need to know. So I know that happens. So that's cool. But yeah, that's always an interesting one to me. I actually, I was having dinner with a basketball coach just before COVID. I was having dinner with a basketball coach at a restaurant after their game. It was just journalists and coaches getting together, talking. And the team that they had just played, one of the dads came up to the head coach, had no idea I was a journalist, probably just thought I was an assistant coach with them, started talking to him about, hey, I'd like my son to come play for you next year. What are you thinking of? And the head coach, he got a little red because there's a journalist, right? I was right there. But I can tell you
take out your phone recorders.
Exactly. I can tell you that the head coach, and I'm not going to name him, he did everything right. And I don't know. I'm hoping he would do everything right if I wasn't there, but he definitely did everything right when the policeman was there. Paul Valencia was there. So I could not believe this parent did this. And oh gosh,
it happens. It's going to happen.
But you'd still think it would be more like a private conversation. He just came up and started talking in front of everybody.
It was private.
Yeah. Well, but a lot of times there are parents out there who don't know.
Correct.
Right. They just said, well, I've seen this kid go there and this kid go there, so I'm just going to go have that conversation. And no, we're not going to talk to you about that.
Nope. Ah, cool. So anyway, Charles, I hope we answered some of your questions, and thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And you guys want to add anything on the transfer eligibility stuff, or?
Well, the only thing that I would say, Paul, and this has changed in the last few years, is colleges now look at this differently because of the transfer portal that they deal with kids in their programs. So I would caution parents, if you are moving your child around frequently and it gets perceived that you're doing that for athletic reasons, colleges, if they are a college athlete, colleges are going to look at that now going, this is kind of this athlete's MO. What's going to happen when and if I get them on my campus and they don't like how I'm coaching them, or that they've shown a habit of, if things get a little hard, maybe we're just going to leave. That college, I have friends who coach college sports, and it's a very real thing that they will consider when looking at a student athlete.
I remember, it's been 10, 15 years ago, but there was a football player who, I think he played on 3 of the 4 Evergreen schools, and it's, that's what you're talking about. If you do that now, colleges are really going to go, not so sure. And,
if you're a surefire, like you're a blue chipper, okay, probably not. But if you're, kind of in that tweener area, and there's probably 10 other kids at your same level that they're recruiting, it's definitely going to be a little bit of a discriminator for them.
Right. And I told you guys that, part of this discussion would be some of the stories I've done. I got one other weird one, strangest one, again, probably 10 or 15 years ago. Player was playing varsity basketball for Prairie, and this was when Prairie and Skyview were in the same league. So
3A.
Yeah, or might have even been 4A. I don't know. But it
was 4. You're right.
Yeah. So, but he played a league game. He played the beginning of the season for Prairie and played league game for Prairie, and then something happened with him and his coach, and he ended up being immediately eligible for Skyview and actually played against Prairie the same year. And I had to write that story not to go, what the heck, how is this? I wrote the story to explain. It's
very unique.
Happened. It is unique, and it was the divorce one, and it's the one that you get a one free move as a child of a divorced family if you're living with mom and then you go live with dad and he lives in the next boundary. That's almost an automatic, right?
It is an automatic.
Okay,
yeah.
And we talked about this. Like you have to show divorce legal papers.
Yes. Right. Right. You can't just separate.
My mom and dad were divorced. I'm here. Yeah.
Right. So we wrote about that one, and it was only to show that nobody broke any rules. And here we go. And again, every situation, there's context to everything. So
there was also one a few years ago. I'm sure you guys wrote about this too. That you couldn't do anymore, but student was enrolled at high school A. Gets an MIP, and the coach at that school said, "I'm suspending you for the year." Mm-hmm. And so the student athlete moved, went to high school B, and was immediately eligible, which you can't do anymore.
Yeah,
because
you can't do that.
If you have discipline that's going to penalize you from being able to participate at high school A, even if you move to high school B and their policies are different, that discipline still follows you now.
I've actually written about this one. It happened long before Clark County Today was around.
Yeah.
But I wrote about this for Clark County Today, so I don't mind telling you. That was Coach John Lambert of La Center. He had a different rule, and I'm not going to name the athlete, but the school's rule was you missed 4 weeks if you get caught with alcohol or
first offense.
His rule was the whole season. So when that athlete moved to a different school, that school had to honor the school's policy, which was 4 weeks. So he came and he kicked butt at that new school too. So, but yeah,
yes, he did.
But I respected John Lambert so much. I wrote about it years later because I said that was his best team. This guy's been to the semifinals 2 or 3 times in his career. And that would have been his best team. He had to let go, I think, 3 players, maybe 4 from that one incident. Mm-hmm. And if at a 1A school, those 4 players would have made the difference. They probably would have won state that year. So I love John Lambert for standing on his principles there. So,
and he didn't have a second thought about it, I promise.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But yeah, that's a weird one. So now, would it be the coaches?
It would be whatever
Or
the school
schools.
has said.
Okay,
But if the school was supporting,
That's what I was going to say. How did?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would all follow you now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Gosh, you see what you did, Charles?
Yeah. There is some gray area there that I'd want to know. But
I really hope Charles is still listening because I'm not sure if we've kept everyone's attention. But no, this is fun for me.
New and upcoming ADs, please listen to this podcast.
Yes.
Exactly. So hey, and then we wanted to say we're going to change subject again. Jack Colletto, Camas.
NFL draft time.
Yeah, 2016 football season, so class of 2017 at Camas. He put that team on his shoulders, and they won the state championship for Camas football, the first of their state championships. And great guy. He only played quarterback 1 year for Camas, and then he was hoping to be a quarterback in the NFL. Well, we posted a story today on Clark County Today. Quarterback didn't work out at college, but he became the Paul Horning Award winner for most versatile college football player and the jackhammer. And he might get drafted probably in the later rounds. Saturday is most likely if he's going to get drafted. And if not, he'll sign probably an undrafted free agent contract, and he's going to get a shot. And I think it's
he
really
will get
cool.
a shot. Yeah,
Tony, what do you think of a guy from Clark County getting a shot?
Well,
in the
it's
NFL?
great, and I was going to say the arc of his college career. I mean, what Oregon State went through, while he's there. I mean, that's a great story too. And I mean, his athletic ability and skills made him valuable for Jonathan Smith. He's just like, I recognize that you can do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z for us. I mean, especially the Oregon game.
Right.
Yeah.
Cale?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's certainly if he doesn't get drafted, he'll sign a free agent contract, but he's going to get an opportunity simply because, I mean, if you look at NFL rosters, like he can do so many different things. He would that's a valuable roster spot with everything that he can do.
If one guy can do that, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of coaches that look for those gadget guys, I guess you'd call them. That.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
And also just special teams.
Well, the special teams thing, right? Especially if he could. I don't know if he long snaps, but
probably could learn how.
Well, that's what I mean, right? If
Yeah. But no, and of course I'm looking forward to the draft because, I got. Well, let's see. It's we're recording this on Wednesday. I have about 24 hours until then. The
Raiders disappoint us,
and then the Raiders will disappoint. Yeah. So I still have 24 hours of hope left as I'm recording this podcast. Not so sure after that, but oh well.
Hey, Seahawk fans are excited too.
Yeah,
man, we haven't drafted this high in a long
right.
time.
Exactly. Thank you, Denver.
Are they taking the quarterback? Cal? Seahawks.
Yeah. I don't. You never know what Paul and John are going to do. Pete. Pete and John, excuse me.
I was thinking Paul Allen.
Yeah. That's where I was going with that. But I don't know. I mean, I could see them trading back, but they've made it pretty clear that you don't get a lot of shots at these guys. So it's just going to be interesting to see who falls and what happens.
What's your prediction for the Raiders, Mr. Valencia?
I just, if they pick a quarterback at 7 or even move up to pick a quarterback, I just want that quarterback playing right away.
I agree. That's where I'm at too.
Jimmy G? Come on now.
I have no problem with Jimmy G. I have no problem with him.
All he does is win games, man.
Well, he's never played on a defense like this. He's never played with a defense like this. So I want defense. But if we do go quarterback that high, I don't want to wait another year.
How many multiple? Is it 5 multiple double-digit leads coming into the fourth quarter that the Raiders blew last year?
It was the most double-digit leads blown in franchise history, and that's a lot of.
And they
years.
did it like in back-to-back in 3 out of 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, I was.
I know you were there. Yes.
I was there. Yes, I remember.
And that's when you didn't answer my text either.
Exactly.
Just sheer depression.
Oh gosh, it was bad. It was bad. It was so bad. We lost to Arizona. I mean, nobody lost to Arizona, but it was bad. So, but always optimistic in April and May. The Raiders haven't lost in months.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. What else? And then Robbie Ray. The Mariners lose Robbie Ray out of the rotation for this season, and
that's gonna hurt.
Here's what's weird, and I don't know if some of the Mariner beat writers, Corey Brock from The Athletic was one. He was posting a bunch of new age stats. And I actually think the Mariner PR did as well. But 7 of their 9 regulars are in the top 100 players out of WAR.
Okay.
And I'm like, and they're they have the most of any which is okay. That's great, right?
Yeah.
And then if you take out Chris Flexen, they have the top pitching staff out of these new. But I'm just like, they're 10 and 12.
Yeah.
Like, how does this? And it was like, are we going to cherry pick stats? You know, because all those guys haven't been hot at the same time.
No.
J.P. Crawford leads the league in on base percentage. Like, what?
It's a long season.
It is. Paul's just like, you guys are worried about May and April? Like,
Yeah, I know. Hey, all I know is,
Well, they're just.
I am worried about April and May.
They're lucky that no one's kind of run away with the division. Like,
Right.
So we're just all kind of sitting there together right now.
yeah. Well, are the A's? Did they get 4 wins yet? I don't even know if the A's
No,
are
but
4 or 5 wins.
They did buy land in
Yeah,
Vegas.
they did. They won't leave me alone. I tried to leave
The A's follow the Raiders.
I tried to leave the Oakland A's alone, and they follow me. They follow me. Oh gosh, if they it will be built right if that's the land that they're going to build the stadium on, which by the way isn't even finalized.
Right.
They're going to buy the land, but they haven't figured out exactly if that's where the stadium's going to be. But it probably will be. But it'll be right across the street, walking distance from an In-N-Out burger. So that's good.
I know where that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's some good in it, but no. And I loved, by the way, when Mark David. Did you see the owner of the Raiders rip on the A's? You never.
I heard that he did,
owners
but I didn't see any
rip on-
direct quotes.
It was really funny. It was no. I will never. Oh, they asked, would you ever work with the Raiders and the Knights? They have like softball games. And they have charity events together. Would you ever work with the A's? Not with that management. No, I will never work with that.
There was some hard feelings.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
both ways.
Well, at least they'll be in a stadium now where there won't be possums living in the broadcast booth.
Exactly.
Right?
Good gosh.
It's funny.
Unbelievable.
Everyone talks about how
Sewer backs up.
horrible the Oakland Coliseum is, but for those of us who grew up there and went there as just a few years ago, it was a dump, but it was our dump. And so it's like Yeah. We'll fight to the death. We love the Raider fans.
You were in the
love
black
that
hole,
place. We
too.
love that place.
Yes.
We loved it, but again, don't get me wrong. I never want to go back, and I love how beautiful my stadium is now in Vegas. But the fans loved the Oakland Coliseum. So.
Yes. And speaking of In-N-Out, we'll close on this, my opinion. They have bad fries.
You're not the only one to say that.
Like their burgers are great. Their fries need to catch up with the burgers. No pun intended.
I'm not an In-N-Out guy. So.
Well, look at Cale. He's like, he's chiseled, right? I mean, the guy's never had a burger in his life.
Yeah.
He's probably he probably grew up like Tom Marinovich.
Because it's like you just don't like In-N-Out burgers, or
I'm just not a big In-N-Out guy.
I don't think he's ever eaten anything unhealthy before.
Oh,
so.
That's not true. That's not true. I'm making burgers at home tonight, Paul.
see, there you
All
go,
right, cool.
out on the grill.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool. Well, we wasted a few more minutes there. That was great. Now we filled more time, so
So
that
if there's
should
questions about our favorite just burger spot, not kind of niche fast food fries, we can do a poll for that too.
No, you're not crazy to say that. You were not crazy to say
Five
that.
Guys runs laps.
But I'll still take In-N-Out burgers as any fast food burger or in the world.
It is good. It is.
So,
yes.
Yep.
All right.
Cool. Awesome.
guys.
Well, thanks a lot. We'll be talking to you in a couple weeks. We're out.